I had the emergency C-section and then the plan later on. We did ask about the gentle C-section and my doctor was like, yeah, we can totally do that. We got offered the clear drape, but my doctor said, I don't have one. I would have to get one. And my husband was like, no, I don't want one. I don't want to see any of it. So that was an option. She did say if we wanted to bring in music, like a CD or play music or whatever. And we thought about it. We spent like a long time thinking about it, but we were like, what would you want playing when your baby comes out? Like, this is like, we were like, would you want like rock music? Would you want like classical music? Like, what kind of music do you want when your baby first comes into the world? So we were like, this is too stressful. So we couldn't pick out what type of music to play. So that's why we didn't do music. But they offered to like kind of dim the lights. Obviously, you're not going to be like in the dark or something or by candlelight, but they offer like different stuff like that. And I was like, no, you don't have to do that. You're doing surgery. You go right ahead and do what you got to do. You don't have to dim the lights for me. I think a difference that I heard from other mothers, but my situation was a little bit different with my emergency and my plans. My arms, I do not believe my arms were pinned down. Like, you know, sometimes they do stuff with like your arms or that kind of, I don't think they had time to do any of that with the first one. And then I didn't have that with the second one, but I do know that isn't something that you can talk about. Like, I want my arms free so I can do skin to skin or hold my baby afterwards. And also placement of monitors and stuff. And I know this might seem like bigger hospitals, they have a lot of space and the monitors and all the stuff is all over the place. But I guess maybe in smaller hospitals, sometimes the movement is kind of smaller and you have to kind of ask to have things kind of moved. I know that's weird, but I've just heard that from other people. Like, I know that sounds like that's part of your gentle C-section for your plan, is just to make sure like you're a part of it. And let's see. Oh, and having baby come to you afterwards. Some people want immediately to you. I was like, sure, I'll take, you know, but I still was like, check my baby first. Check my baby out first. That was just kind of like my thing. I know some people, they'll hand you right baby. But they took him over and checked him and then gave him to me, which I was happy with just because I want to make sure, you know, he's breathing good and everything was good in that way. But I know they do and I did skin to skin too. So when I got him, they stuck him right in my gown. And it was just, it's cute pictures. I won't lie. Like, I was really excited. Like, the three of us were all like, you know, he's like inside my little gown with his little hat on and stuff. So that was kind of fun. So I get that. So that's one of the things. But
well, with a C-section, which you have to kind of understand is that there's a division of responsibility for what's happening to you. So up at the head of the bed, you have your anesthesiologist, and he's the one who's keeping an eye on all the monitors. He's got the IV controls, he's got the meds, he's got all that stuff. And, well, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say he, but mine was a he. They are in control and they're making sure that you are doing okay. And that's their whole thing. They're checking your things and they don't have anything to do but watch you and your stats. So you can always chat with them, and the best ones will talk to you.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you brought that up, actually, because anytime anything's feeling weird, you can tell them I'm feeling nauseous or I'm not feeling right. And they are on it. They handle everything and it's all done. Like, you're good now. Like, they're fast. Like, they know exactly what they're doing in there.
Yeah. I mean, nausea is a big one for me. I'm not really, I didn't like it because the first time I had nausea, I was sitting up in my bed, and the only way I could not be nauseous is to keep my eyes fixed straight ahead and turn my head if I wanted to look at something, and turn my head back if I moved my eyes and turn my head at the same time. Boom. Oh, it was horrible. So it's kind of like I'm sitting here like very, very still and very, very stiff because every movement of my head just kicked it in. I'm like, could I have something for nausea? They're like, it will make you sleepy. I'm like, I'm good with that. I'm fine with that. Please make this horrible sensation go away. And they did. It was wonderful. Yeah. Yeah. So, and then at the other end of the bed is the surgeon, and everything else is going on with you and the baby, and two different things. And they have, and yeah. And we just had a planned C-section, and they just did the little small talk, the chit chat at the bottom. And then the baby came out and they held him up and he peed on the OB, and everyone cheered, and they took him away, and then they brought him back, passed him off to my husband. I was good with that. I was like, I'm just lying here on feeling them stitch me back up. Not really, but they're tugging on me, and this is not something it's just weird. I have a very good imagination, and the feelings and the sensations are just bizarre, and you're like, I don't know what they're doing, but I can kind of imagine it. I don't know, it might have actually made more sense for me to watch them, which I really didn't want to do, because I'm like, I don't want to watch you cut me. This is not cool. I mean, I know you're doing it, but I don't want to see it. But yeah, a planned C-section, if everything goes more or less according to textbook, is not a terrible situation to be in. I mean, it's not very pleasant, but then again, labor isn't either.
It's true. I think probably my favorite thing about a planned C-section is that you walk in the OR. That is such a different experience. And in a way, I could almost say that's kind of got like a healing effect, but I wouldn't call it healing. I would say facing your trauma, because the last time of my being like rushed in was like terrifying and shocking and horrible, but being able to like go check in and then go to a room and hang out with the nurses and the doctor, before surgery, because my doctor came in and checked on us before she went to go get prepped. And, and we're literally hanging out, watching our baby on the monitor, and, like just hanging out with your family's there. And it's all comfortable and fun. And then they're like, okay, are you ready? And then I think you have an option. They can wheel you in. And I was like, I'm walking in, you're not wheeling me in again. And that feeling of walking in, even though they're following you with your IV bed, there's just that feeling of like freedom, like, yes, I'm going to do this. And it was just such a different experience. And then hopping up on the table. I mean, you don't really hop up there because you're normally really big and you can't really probably hop anymore, but like getting up on the table and getting situated and them getting you all ready. It's so different. And we wanted, for our big thing was communication. And that's what we told our doctor. I was like, we just want to know everything that's going on. So the moment we walked in the door that day, they told us everything. We're going to put a monitor on you. We're going to do this. You're going to get your IV. They literally told us like everything. And, and they were just on it, because when we told her, we talked to the hospital too. So we didn't have a birth plan. Okay. We didn't do that. There's no birth plan. But what we did was we went over kind of what our idea of would be to make it more of a comfortable experience for us. And, the hospital was really cool. And the day of, they offered us more stuff than what we even knew about. So that day they knew about us coming in. They knew about, they kind of knew us already from going in a couple of times before this, but you can talk to the hospital before. You can call them or contact with them before you even go to the hospital, and talk about what you want to do and stuff, and what they can do as options for that hospital. They offered me a nurse that would go from baby to me and tell me everything going on. Aww. We were like, that's awesome. So when we went in, I walked in, got everything, whatever. When they were all ready, and the show was about to begin, basically, here comes my husband, comes in, and, everything's going on. And it was really nice. And they said we can move, if we wanted the drape moved, we could do that too, where they do like a peekaboo show. Again, my husband didn't want to see anything. But when baby came out, they were like, okay, now. And so a nurse moved the curtain, and then he got like first pictures of him coming out and stuff. And they're beautiful pictures, even though you're like, oh my God, surgery. I'm telling you, they're some of the most beautiful pictures I've ever seen. Like, it's this beautiful moment of your baby coming out, and it's beautiful. And so, so they took him over. I mean, even my husband got to cut the cord, do all that stuff. And then he went right over with them. And I just had a nurse going back and forth between me, and I could kind of see, but kind of not. It was a big room, kind of see what's going on. And the nurse would just go and be like, oh, they're weighing him, and oh, they're doing this, and oh, your husband's putting a diaper on him. Like, I got to hear everything that was going on over there, and the nurses were having a great time with us, and you're all in flow. I had 2 doctors, so the 2 doctors were talking to me and talking to him, and it was a really great experience, because the last time you hear beeping and you hear like medical terms and codes and all the stuff, but nobody was saying anything to us. So this time was like, we were a part of what was going on. Even my doctor, when she was getting to the end, she's like, I'm just putting in the last few stitches and you'll be done in a few minutes, and they're going to take you to the recovery room. And this is as she's finishing up. So it was just such a different experience in like every single possible way ever. And honestly, afterwards I was like, I wish I would have just done this the first time, just scheduled a C-section and walked in and not had any stress, any worries. And then there was my baby and I got to go home. Like, that's my personal opinion. But
I found walking into the OR to be a little bizarre, because I worked in the hospital and I had almost walked into not an OR, but I walked into the antechamber for the OR suite, and they said, what are you doing here? You're not, I'm like, what? And they're like, this is the OR. And then I turned around and hustled my buns back out so fast. So and then of course I was run in on the trolley, on the gurney, when I had my emergency C-section. And then the planned C-section was, oh, we're going to take you to the OR. I'm like, oh, am I allowed to do that? And they're like, okay, get up on the table. I'll say one thing. It is nice hopping up on the table, because otherwise what they do is you come in on a gurney and then they have to lift you up and over onto the table. And there's nothing particularly wonderful about being handled like a side of beef. I mean, they're gentle and everything, and they're careful, but it's like a sack of potatoes. I'm just a sack of potatoes. Boing. So yeah, that was pretty cool. And then people say hello when they introduce themselves, and that does not happen in an emergency C-section. And then just, everything. And oh, my favorite part of a C-section is how fast it is. It's just kind of like, people are like, oh, too posh to push. And I'm like, well, yeah, about a half an hour of prep, an actual hour in the OR, maybe. Yeah, that does sound like a better deal, doesn't it? Plus the idea that you can actually plan to have this happen. And there's no waiting for a magic moment. It's like, nope, we made our own magic moment.
I don't have the personal experience from the planned. I very much wish I had chosen differently and did, because I only have had 2, but I will say my first birth was more of it wasn't an emergency section. I mean, I needed to have it done, but we weren't rushing down the hall like a stat one. Like my second one, it was kind of I had the choreo and with that one. So I was fully conscious for that one versus being put under for the second. I did Danielle, like you were saying, actually both of you a little bit, I did appreciate, I was kind of loopy, 18, 20 hours into labor with the first one, and having the anesthesiologist, I probably just sounded like a drunk person to him. I really was a little bit just sort of not nonsensical, but a little bit. I was just kind of loopy and tired and not feeling well. And so I was talking to him, but it was keeping my mind off of again, like you, and I do have kind of imagination. So a couple of times I would be picturing what was happening and being like, oh, I don't know about this. And so having the anesthesiologist to talk to, I was, like I said, a little bit quirky and tired and whatever else, but it was really nice to have him right there. And I was able to say, I was one of the people who felt nauseous during it. I was getting pumped full of a bunch of stuff too. I was getting antibiotics and all these things, and I hadn't eaten, and I had an infection. So there's probably a lot of contributing factors in that. And I was feeling very nauseous, and he was very helpful and talking through that with me and trying different like medications and things like that. And he had like a little like puke bucket next to, like, he was literally holding it right there and was not fazed at all by it. So that was really nice to have that. And then it was, I mean, just after all of that time that I was in labor and feeling like not well and like it wasn't going to end, it was very nice to know like the timing of it. Like you were saying, Ange, it's just so much quicker. So that piece of it, like, oh my gosh, I really am just minutes away from meeting my baby now, was really nice to just know that there was that. I mean, for that piece of it, I should have just had that takeaway from it, because the actual C-section itself was not bad at all. And, recovery can be a little bit painful no matter how you give birth. So, I was pretty tired and everything after that one, and so my recovery was a little tougher the first time around, but I actually, those pieces of it, I think if you have a good team, I think one thing too, if you communicate going in, like, so me, I am a person who has anxiety and I'm an anxious person. So if your medical team is well aware of that, I think it can help them to provide more tailored care to you with that too, to just know that I'm probably going to nervously ask a lot of questions while it's happening and things like that. And, the team that did my C-section the first time was great with that. So that's what I would add. But yeah, I love my sister. I'll share, she had 2 scheduled C-sections after she had her first in 2006. She had preeclampsia, and then so they had induced her a little bit early. My niece was only about 6 pounds, so she was full term, but like 38 and a half weeks, I think. And so she had failure to progress after being induced and had high blood pressure that just wasn't coming down. So they gave her a C-section, and then she didn't have her son until 9 years after that. So she was actually going to she kind of did our classic wait and see approach we talk about a lot. Like she was going to go for a TOLAC, but then, if she didn't by a certain point, around 40 weeks, she was going to have her C-section. So that came and went, and she had her C-section. She talked how it was just so much better. And then she, like you, and she didn't have, or both of you rather, she didn't have like a quote unquote, the real full out gentle C-section with like the clear drape and all of that. But, she's another one. She's my sister. So, runs in the family. She's also anxious. And she said having that predictability, the scheduled date, knowing the end date, knowing like all of that oversight was happening to keep her, because with preeclampsia, she was pretty sick and everything, and it was scarier. So she was excited to have that. And she actually, for her third son, who she had just a year later, so that was like, okay, well, this is your third and short interval. For her third baby, they did another scheduled C-section, but her water actually broke at like 38 weeks. So she had the experience of that type of so she called labor and delivery. They said, come in. And then they had her and they just took her right in for the C-section there. So she had a little bit of everything, and she'll tell you, her second was the best, just having the plan, having the, not, she was a little startled the third time, like, what if I like give birth right now? I don't want like, what's going to happen now that my water just broke? But she actually never went into like active labor. Her water just broke. So they, took her in and did that. So she has good experience with all of that. And she's been helpful in sharing her perspective and her experiences, especially for people like in our family and friendship circle who might be like contemplating, they don't just hear me terrify them about they hear all the different sides of it. So there's that, but.
Oh, and something we should say, and I'm sure you can probably agree, a emergency C-section is different for recovery for a planned C-section. They were completely different for me. My emergency C-section seemed to be harder on my body because I had already been dealing with all the stuff for having a vaginal birth and then getting the C-section. It was a little bit harder. not saying you can't get through it, but you can. But the planned C-section, it seemed like I recovered really quick. Like I bounced back a lot better. Not saying I didn't take rest and take it easy and listen to my doctor, but I did. I listened to my body, and I noticed I went home on ibuprofens. Like I did. When we were in the hospital, I was like, I'm good. When I could have things taken out and everything, whatever, I was like, I think I'm good. I don't think I need anything. You're not taking like a 200 little baby pill of ibuprofens, but you're taking them and you're not chasing the pain of, chasing your pain meds kind of thing. So, and I was fine, but I also listened to my body and didn't like overstrain myself. I had help. Some people don't always get help, so they don't have the extra hands or the extra that's around, but that was a big difference between them. And my body to be put together after my emergency C-section seemed to take much longer. I want to say much, much longer than the plant. They couldn't get my muscles back down, and it felt like they were beating on my body to try to pull the muscles back down to sew me up. Because obviously they can't leave it, like, you know what I mean? They have to put things back in order. And because of, I was already going through all these labor stuff, and then I went shock, all these things were going on to my body. And here's this doctor and these nurses, it was a team trying to pull everything and put it back into place. And that's painful afterwards when that stuff wears off. You might feel things moving and whatever, but you don't know what's happening until after the stuff is taken off. And then you're like, wow, I feel like I got ran over. Like that's what it felt like to me. So my second time around was completely different experience, completely in every way. So I do want to say that, like, they were way different, and you don't know what you're going to get. Like, that's why I was like, oh, no, planned. It was much easier recovery, like easy.